All right, you're good to go.
All right, thank you. Well, good evening. I'm Joanna Ogburn, the chair of the Annapolis Conservancy Board, and I hereby call this meeting to order of the board on September 9th, 2021. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. How about let's start off. I want to see if anybody had any edits to the meeting minutes from our July 8th meeting. Any notes from you guys on that one? It was a rousing discussion, if I remember. Okay. Hey, Ashley.
Hello.
Hey. All right. We will move to you in just a quick second here. So, so no edits to the meeting minutes from anybody? No changes, questions?
I'll move approval if you'd like.
That'd be great.
I'll second.
All right, so we have approval from Trudy, second from Linda. You know what? I know Tammy is no longer taking notes. Racine, do you know if someone needs to take notes for this meeting or?
I will take minutes for the meeting.
I didn't mean to put that on you.
I'm also the liaison for AEC, and until they work it out or let us know otherwise, I as the city liaison, I'll go ahead and take notes.
Okay.
Give me one sec though.
Yeah, you're fine. I just realized that. Sorry, I should have asked you guys ahead of time.
And Racine, if you need any help with how the minutes should look, you can always talk to Regina Watkins Eldridge in the city clerk's office. She can give you sort of like fill in the blanks type things.
Regina Watkins?
Yeah, over in the city clerk. Or if not, when I get back in the office next week, hopefully I can do it then too. I have some samples.
And so for the minutes, that was first from Trudy, second from Linda. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Hey, thank you. All right. So let's see, are you all set, Racine? Oh, I lost her. Racine, are you okay if we go ahead and move forward?
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm all set now.
Okay, great. All right, and Ashley, if you're still good, I'd like to go ahead and move up the last agenda item, which is review of the conservation area on the public works site, since we have Ashley here and she is the one who has the most knowledge about that. Are you all okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Ashley, would you like to provide us with some background?
Okay, so you may or may not know this, but the old city public works facility was basically condemned over on Spa Road. They're building the new facility at 39 Hudson Street, which is technically, I believe, I think it's the border of the county and the city. But at any rate, as part of the project, just like we do for any city development, we do consider conservation easements. And the city is putting a conservation easement on some of the area that's going to be developed here. There is not going to be an actual, there will probably be plats, but there won't be an actual easement agreement because the grantor and the grantee would both be the city. So it's sort of.
It's like a dedication.
Yeah, it'll be a dedication.
Okay.
It'll be in all the permits and the plats and all of that sort of thing. But the current city attorney and city manager's position is that we don't need a formal easement agreement, but it will be on all of the permit and development plans as they're finalized. So what I shared with Joanna, who shared with you, is, as far as I know, the most current version of what the easement, the conservation easement area would look like, that the city's planning to dedicate. So since you guys, I just figured I'd give you guys a chance to look at it. The construction it hasn't started yet. So construction on this facility and even like the grading of the I don't think grading has even started on the
Okay.
areas. So it's just the very beginning stages of development. So things could shift as we're going through, but I'm not aware of any shifts that we're going to do. But it's just sort of a asterisk that there might, depending on if they run into any serious issues with how the facility is going up, because it is kind of a tight space. But there is always an intent to do a conservation area. So that's sort of my spiel. And sorry, I'm a little all over the place. I had a kid in the ER last night, so.
No, and I'm so sorry. Yeah, hoping everyone's doing much better today.
They're getting there. I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sure. I wish you all the best. And I can pull up some maps and diagrams for you guys, if that would be helpful to look at the site. Is that good for y'all? And I have a question for you as I'm doing that, Ashley. So there's no formal easement agreement. Do you all, when you do a dedication, and Linda, you probably know this much better than I do. Do you put terms in the deed? Like easement?
Sometimes, yes. The deed generally has more strict terms if you're dealing with a third party. In this case, what's going to happen is the city still has to go through a grading and a building permit process, even though we are the city. So as part of that process and part of the final plats and the final drawings that all get recorded in land records, those will include these conservation areas.
Okay.
But we won't have like the details about like, you know, we don't need the sections about the city can come in and fix things and do enforcement, because, you know, that a lot of the easement agreement is the city sort of saying, we're going to keep an eye on you and we reserve the right to go in there. So it'll still be dedicated, but we just won't have a lot of that extra language.
Yeah, I think the sort of loose reference to it being an easement is confusing.
Well, you can do easements on a plat. It's not, it's, as a lawyer, if you're dealing with a third party, you kind of want it on the plat and an agreement, but it is legally binding to put an easement, like a utility easement, an access easement, a conservation easement. It is legally binding to put those on recorded plats because they are put into land records and they do run with the property.
Yeah, I get that. It's just sort of like like you said, you're the grantor and grantee, sort of, so to speak. But yeah.
Well, and how does this fit in with the Forest Conservation Act? Because
that question.
I assume that the area that's being put into conservation is the Forest Conservation Act requirement.
Yes, my understanding is generally with city permits, we follow our own laws. So we don't, the city policy is not to circumvent our own laws for our own development. So yes, the idea is
the state
to
law
comply.
too. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the idea is to comply with our Forest Conservation Act.
I guess my question is that, so, you know, when somebody develops a parcel and they have to put aside, they have to keep forest there because of the Forest Conservation Act requirements. Like what does it require them to do? I mean, they don't have to put an easement on it per se, do they? Or do they, or would they?
It depends. There's a variety of ways they can do it. There's payment in lieu of fees. There's the possibility if you get like an exception to plant on other areas. There's the possibility.
Well, I mean, if they're keeping forests,
if they're
would always be an easement.
Generally, yes. I mean, if we're talking about a big chunk, yes, that we generally make them do. But those only really get triggered on the bigger developments. I mean, you know, most of the development in the city is like one lot parcels, so it doesn't trigger a conservation easement every time. But generally the policy is, at least all the developments I've been working on for that are bigger, yes, it usually triggers a conservation easement agreement.
Is this something that, you know, is it a situation where this is going to go on our list of things to monitor, or is it more like the board is a venue, a little bit of the public interface of keeping a check on future city actions?
I think it's more of the latter. I mean, I don't think we're going to expect a board to, I mean, I think you can still think if there's an issue out there, you could always bring it out to the city's attention and say, hey, this, we think there's some easement out there, but it's just sort of, and the one who was in the ER is now climbing on me.
That's good.
But I think it's more, we just, we want to make sure that people know that even when we develop parcels, we are making a good faith effort to try and comply with all of our permitting requirements and our laws relates to mitigation and easements.
So I'm sorry, Ashley, when it comes to, I know this question came up before. So when it comes to Forest Conservation Act easements, it sounds like there are probably not going to be a ton of those that happen across the city just because the size of parcels. So it's probably not a big.
It gets triggered. There's sizing on it, but I mean, as you probably are well aware of, most people in Annapolis knows, there's just not that many big parcels anymore that have existing forests that you can keep and still develop. So, but I would say in the last few years, all of the big developments that have come through have had a conservation easement. I actually just added, I think, a new one to our folder, the shared folder that you guys have, the Google folder. So I would say most of it, and there's one coming through right now, the Rocky Gorge Airth T. Allen development is just getting permitted, and I believe that's going to have a conservation easement with it too. So, I would say to the extent, I mean, this is all within the purview of planning, and zoning is the one who makes the ultimate decisions about what's needed and when an easement is required. But I would say that they are making very concerted efforts to keep things, conserved and mitigated to the extent possible. So.
Can I just ask a question about the plan that, thank you very much. I've always wondered where exactly this site was. Are we looking, when we're talking about the forest conservation easement, I'm seeing the cleared off area. I assume that's the core area that the building and storage will go on. Are we talking about some or all of the forested area between it and the Monarch Academy? What are we?
I'd have to look at the plan again. I looked at it briefly this morning, but then I got distracted. But a lot of that is going to be, saved and is like a stormwater area.
Yeah, I remember there's a ravine in there.
Yeah, there is a ravine. Yeah. So there is a whole area that is not really buildable. So I think
like
all
on
that
the map.
But that's
on the map, it looked like it didn't include that entire forested area. But I'm not sure where the property line ends.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I'm trying to think which of these is the best one to. Hudson Street. Is this kind of? This is the edge of that area. Am I right? No, I think I flipped around. Is this?
Because I wasn't sure.
Am I
right?
right?
I kind of got the feeling that solid line was the. Yeah, because it says existing floodplain there.
That's kind of where it becomes a ravine, I think.
Yeah, so it's not all of the forest all the way to Monarch University or Academy.
No, but
it's just it's just to the property line, I guess.
Yeah, the floodplain is already it's going to be preserved in a different manner in that it's a floodplain, so you can't build in it for different reasons. But there's I don't know if there's I was just on the site about a month ago. I'm not sure in that ravine area there's much plantings, trees that are healthy and could be preserved anyway, but I don't think we're going to do any disturbance back there anyway, because it is a floodplain, which triggers a whole different set of laws.
That's fine. That's enough detail for me for my question. I get it.
Oh, I see. And it actually is labeled as forest conservation area versus easement area. So that makes
on the plat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you'll see, there's notes on the bottom of it about it.
This here.
So there'll be notes throughout the plat about the conservation areas. And like I said, even though it's not a full agreement, it is still legally binding once it gets recorded.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's labeled easement down there. Okay.
Yeah, it's funky. Huh. So, all right, and I apologize for all these probably questions I should know the answers to, but so in terms of what the restrictions are, is it simply because it's called forest conservation easement, you know that it's tied to the act and the restrictions are listed in the
yes,
act?
that's how
Okay.
it generally works. Generally, if it's labeled as a forest conservation area, then the local jurisdictions laws apply related to forest conservation.
Forest Conservation Act. Okay, so there
Yeah.
wouldn't be like any terms in the deed referenced
No,
necessarily.
just because,
That's okay. I
Yeah.
was just curious how this worked. Okay, very cool. So for us, for the board, we don't need to necessarily worry about monitoring this property, but it's great for us obviously to be aware of it.
I think that we might want to consider, as we enter the process of putting easements, of course, other parcels I think are more vulnerable than this one, but as we're going through the process of putting easements on other city-owned parcels, it might not be a bad idea to put an easement on this one as well that would be held by somebody other than the city.
Well, and that is something we can consider with some of the other ones you're doing, like having a state agency hold the easement.
Like an MET or something.
Yeah, correct.
Well, is
That
there
that could be a recommendation.
is there any way to, as these go on city properties without getting too complicated, just to list them as under the monitoring jurisdiction of our board or something, don't.
I think that's already kind of in, I'll have to double check, but in city code, I think your board setup automatically gives you that purview without having, I mean, we specify it in the easement agreements just so the third parties know the arrangement, but city code already sort of sets up that scenario.
Well, Joanne, maybe not this evening, but longer term, we could figure out because I do think that we should have some general oversight. The city has been known to not be always perfect in every aspect, but it wouldn't hurt to have an independent group taking a look once a year and make sure that rubber tires haven't been thrown in the ravine by somebody else or some of those things. It just seems to me, and also if a person wants to go in one location and find preserved land in the city, we would be that location. So it seems
I see.
Maybe that's, I don't know.
So you've got two thoughts there, Trudy. It sounds like one, thinking of us being almost somehow like a repository of all known conservation-y type easement or areas that are in the city. So that's one aspect of it. And then the second piece of that is maybe we should be monitoring this every year. Thoughts? I see Linda has her face ready.
I think what comes to mind for me at a minimum on this repository idea, because is to actually that when there are forest conservation area, basically dedications either through like on city properties or private properties, and there's no sort of independent easement, that there's a digitized, there's a city map layer to say, okay, where is all of our forest cover preserved? Because that's important for a lot of reasons, including like probably GL related requirements and stuff, so it's permanently protected forest.
I kind of like that idea. I think of having a repository. I just know I'm coming onto the board and trying to figure out where these things exist. There's no common place. And so it is really hard to get a sense of all these different pieces. And maybe, like you said, one way to do that.
Similar layer, like
things
that happen, like the city gets a dedication or does something like this. And then like 20 years later and people are asking about Wells Cove or the rights there. Just sort of like these things are popping up where if you don't have a visual that's publicly available, then you go digging in the archives to try to prove
It's
up.
hard.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, that Lynn said better than I, that concept. It just feels like we're, to the degree if anybody looks to us for it, we think we're looking to it for to know what greenways ought to be and how things should link together. We need to know what the whole picture somehow looks like,
Yeah.
even if we're not tromping around inspecting it every year. We need.
Okay.
I would agree. And that's why I'm trying to bring these to your attention.
I like
and we're
that.
doing the shared folder. I'm also working with Sean Wampler in our MIT department to make sure that she's aware of all these. And I think I shared it with someone else. So I am making a concerted effort to try and sort of keep these all in a common space and sharing them with everyone. I actually was just going through really old boxes last week and found possibly a couple more, but they might be duplicates. I have to check them because I am actually the one who goes through a lot of the law office archives.
Yeah.
Interesting.
To find stuff.
You've got the surveyor that's got the call, sort of the calls on here. So that could be easily, digitized, I think.
Yeah. This is done by Bay Engineering. So once this one is done, in addition to sharing it with you, I will make sure that our IT department is aware of it so that if they want to put it on any of their layers, they can. And they have been asking me for that.
That's great.
Great.
You guys I really appreciate that, Ashley. You and Sean have been really helpful in kind of getting us up to speed. Okay, so it sounds like, does anybody not like the idea of us sort of helping to serve as that kind of repository, trying to make sure that GIS layer with the city is up to date, and maybe we do host all of these kind of plats and or deeds in that common Google Drive folder that Ashley mentioned. Does anybody not like that idea?
Sounds good.
Joanna,
Okay.
I think you're right. I mean, along the line, somebody's got to be able to agree to be a, kind of like an overwatch, for the city. Now, I don't know how many other entities within the city also have that responsibility. If there are any, we had to find out who, but if there's nobody who does that mission, Trudy brings up a good point. It might not be a bad idea for it to, to rest somewhere within the city.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good plan. And the second piece that Trudy mentioned, I think, Linda, you might have agreed there, but I wanted to see, what do you guys think about monitoring this on a yearly basis or some kind of basis? This one and potentially any of the other Forest Conservation Act easements. Is that something we want to be doing?
But I suggest, having been the one to say that, maybe we do it 2 steps at a time. First, let's figure out what we would be biting off and see what
Like how much?
these look like. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then congratulate ourselves at that level, and then ask what role we want in them, because I don't really know what I just said in terms of the size and volume of what there are. Maybe Karen knows. I just don't know.
No idea.
Yeah.
So first step is you're suggesting let's take a look at how many of these Forest Conservation Act areas are in the city and maybe how many we would expect to see. I think we could probably get a decent thought on that. Do we have those? So Ashley, do we feel like you have those?
I have been collecting them. I'd have to look and see how many are on private versus city. But as I keep running across them in random searches, I do keep trying to sort of centralizing them, so to speak. But I'd have to actually look. And I can check with Sean Wampler because she's been helping me with all of that.
Okay.
I think we could definitely do the city ones. I think this might be the only one. I can't imagine that the city, I don't think they've done any other developments that I'm aware of recently. I mean,
No, we've mostly sold property recently.
And I think that trying to do it without an easement on private property might be problematic for access.
Yeah.
So, but it might be a
feels
place
funny.
that we would want to target trying to get easements donated. I don't know. I'm not sure the mechanics of that. but
It's kind of on the road to just really understanding the opportunities to
That-
permanently conserve the any remaining forest cover in the city,
Yeah,
publicly or privately owned.
I agree. Okay. Maybe we could, so maybe we could go ahead and monitor city-owned forest conservation areas. And Ashley, we can follow up with you to see if there are any other ones besides.
Yeah, I'll take when I'm
This
back in
one?
the office next week, I'll take a look at them.
Okay, and I'll let you guys know. We can kind of decide from there if that we still want to go forward. Does that sound like a good plan of action? Do we want to be the repository for the private ones as well? I'm guessing yes, but just want to check on that. Just so we know, again, like if you're looking at that common layer, I don't know how everything matches up.
I
think we
think
wanna know
that
where
if
they
the
are.
city is creating a data layer that shows permanently
Mhm.
dedicated forest cover. I
Would
think
be-
that could be private or public.
Yeah,
It's not to indicate that people can access it, but that
Right.
here is the permanently
Yeah.
dedicated forest area. You know,
Yeah.
it might be there's a layer that says these are easements, and there's a layer that says these are other dedications of forest cover,
Okay.
something.
Okay.
makes perfect sense.
Okay.
All right. Oh, this is great. Okay. Well-
If we're done with all the things in our turf here, can we go back to that first picture? I just want to ask Ashley, see if Ashley knows in
To
for
the-
bigger capacity.
This one?
Yeah, I'm just actually, as one who hated the idea of having the public works site down on Forest Drive next to our affordable housing community, and I remember there were like 70 trucks that go in and out and all that. How do they get in and out of this site? Because Hudson doesn't have any stoplights, and you couldn't possibly have trucks turning.
You have to
Yeah.
you have to make a right when you come out.
Yeah,
So
Mhm.
I mean that was sort of one of the negatives of the site.
yeah.
That they weighed, and their people are just have to be creative with their exit routes.
Okay.
I mean, to be perfect. I mean, there's, I mean, that is probably the biggest thing. But on the plus
Yeah.
side, it's a really good site area. It's an industrial area. So it had a lot of pluses. All the sites they were looking at had pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
So yes, when they come out, they will have to make a right. And sometimes they might just have to swing up onto 5301 and sort of loop
Yeah.
themselves around.
That's funky.
It's
Yeah.
kind of ironic to me that the to-do over the affordable housing, which isn't shown there, which is next to the Monarch that's being built, got a Girard Avenue light installed, and that's much lighter traffic coming out of that little 40 units or whatever it is of affordable housing than this
Yeah.
public works site where there's no talk of apparently a stoplight, and you can't have a stoplight everywhere on West Street, or pretty soon nothing
Right.
will move. But anyway, I digress. This is just
We'll bring us
thank
back
you.
on.
Wait, I don't-
Hopefully they'll get some tips from all of the other industrial people
Yeah,
who are going
that's
in and
true.
out of Hudson.
Yeah. I know. it's quite a
Thank
few.
you. I've been very fascinated to see where it actually went. So I
Yeah.
enjoyed seeing this picture. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. And thank you. I just want to say thanks again, Ashley, for like bringing this stuff to our attention and helping us kind of keep track of all of it. It's super helpful. So thank you for for doing that and for being the one to look through all of the old archives. Sure there's some interesting stuff that you dig up from time to time. Okay, I think that's it. Unless anybody has any other questions related to this. Good. Okay, all right. So next, I just want to chat with you guys about easement monitoring. Very exciting stuff. We'll stop sharing there. So I think last year or the year before, I can't remember which, but we sort of laid out a schedule that now is the time of year in September that we would do signups. Let's see, which of us would monitor which sites and try to complete them, by January, if at all possible. And
And you'd like us to go in the fall. Is that what I recall from the past, so we can
I
see?
think that's what folks, had suggested. They preferred.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has any suggestions or thoughts, but the idea was it's not super cold, but the leaves should be coming off the trees, starting certainly in November. in December is a good times to get out. Does that still sound good for folks? Good time? Okay. So we'll try to stick with that. And the thought was, I think when we talked about this briefly, March of this year, that folks still like the idea of us kind of doing it individually as opposed to all going as a big group. Does that still work for everybody?
Works for me. You spend more time making a group out of it than just doing the job. So I
may ask for a little buddy.
I was going to say, yeah, so I was going to offer certainly Linda, if you want to do some of these together, I'd be happy. And I'm sure some of the others would as well. And for anybody else, if there's ever a site where you feel slightly uncomfortable or just for whatever reason would like to have a second person, please let me know, and either myself or I can ask around to have somebody else, because I certainly don't want anybody going on a property where they, just would prefer to have somebody with them. So yeah, so just want to toss that out there. And yes, Linda, I'd be happy to do some with you.
More so for like location and,
Oh yeah, no, it's hard to figure out
I'm
where they are
definitely
sometimes.
curious to get out to walk around Kingsport and see if the tornado damaged anything. I did drive through the neighborhood,
Do that.
and I couldn't see any damage from the road, but
Okay.
when you're coming down Aris T. Allen and you look down
looks
through the
bad.
forest, you can see the back of the Bywire community. So it almost had to have touched our easement
I was
somehow.
wondering about that and wondering about the stream restoration project that went in. I mean, it probably wouldn't make it.
Arundel River said it didn't hurt their stream
Okay.
restoration.
That's good.
I did ask them about that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
But so anyway, I guess what I'm getting to is like if anybody wants to go walk Kingsport sometime soon, let me know. I'm curious to go walk it myself and see what if
Great.
any damage.
I would like to suggest that those of you with the expertise like Joanne and Lynn and Karen handle Eastport,
Kingsport.
I don't mean Eastport. What Kingsport,
Kingsport?
sorry, because that one is more complicated, and you understand. I'm more comfortable with the little, small things that I've done. I don't.
It's a big site, yeah.
It's big, and
I feel like that needs our expertise. I'm fine to, handle any.
Yeah, I'll go with you, Karen.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that, that'd be great. And
Okay.
the other thing I've been reaching out and Racine, I know I've asked, I know they're really busy with the comp plan update and everything. And I can reach out to them as well, but I thought I'd maybe ask for your help too, Racine, is getting, I think Eric Borchers, we can bring the right Eric, maybe someone had suggested he could give us an updated map of that easement on Kingsport, because it is kind of complicated. And over the last year, we had that issue come up with the gate. And I think myself included, we didn't really realize that area was even part of whether or not it was part of the easement. So it's a complicated easement. There's a lot of pieces to it. And it sort of, winds around the community in ways that I didn't even quite realize.
Has more history of issues than I think any other parcel.
Yeah.
I'd like you historians to take that one.
Karen is great. Yeah.
I know.
So you probably are pretty well set, but I feel like it would be nice to make sure, especially with that one, because issues do come up sometimes and it is bigger, to get someone to really, finally map where that easement area is throughout the community.
I'm not sure if it's, which Eric it is, Eric Lashinsky or Eric Borchers, but I'll check with both.
Okay, I appreciate that. It might have been
I know
Eric Lashinsky volunteered Eric Borchers.
Yeah, I know Eric Lashinsky is focused on the comp plan, but he has accessibility to many maps though.
Okay.
Because of working on the comp plan. So I'll check with both.
Okay, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, because I was trying to look at the deed plats from the Conservancy Board website to see like where our easement was exactly compared to the tornado track, and I was having a hard time figuring it out. So it would be good to just have, and they're all, it's broken up over many plats, so it would be good to just have like we used to have the outline, like a map on the website that had an outline of the easement, but I don't know if it was accurate.
It's still on the website. Like you have to click around a little
Oh, I
bit to
couldn't- I
find
couldn't
them.
find it,
It's
yeah.
just kind of funky, but you can still
Okay.
find them. But I'm not sure that it catches everything. I don't think it does exactly. And we have no idea when those were done. So
How
it
would
could
you
be-
like us to proceed to, I believe,
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there was a chart of all the
Mhm.
ones and you wanted us to respond back, which ones we.
Yeah, so I can send that. I can do that again. I can send like a Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet out.
I
If you
would-
guys want to pick kind of, I think if we each do 3, I have to look back at the list again, but I think it kind of works out that way, like 3 or 4 each.
If you put it on a shared drive, then then everyone has access to it and can see who's doing what and can then therefore, I guess, sign up for whichever area they want to sign up for.
Okay. Does that work for everybody?
As long as you send the link to how we get to this shared drive.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Once I got over, I know I've said this before, but once I got over the incredible shock that this came with the duties of being on the board, I don't mind this task at all, and
Oh,
I
great.
don't mind how many I do to be part of the cleanup. So I'll pick some, but just
Oh,
know
thanks.
that, when we're getting to the point, and I think I've done this other years where you have some dangling ones, I'll go and do that. I love to go and see the one that we own because I always learn things that I need to know about what's going on at the Writers Glen site anyway. So, but yeah, I'll put 3 or
Appreciate
4 on, and then just know that I'm
I
perfectly
appreciate that, Trudy.
do late
great.
winter, late fall, winter cleanup too. Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
Oh, that's great. No, made a note of that. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know if there were particular sites that people had been visiting for years. So I was just going to kind of hang back and just fill in whatever. I mean, nothing really stands out to me. So, and I could do more than 3. So
I would
great.
like you guys to do, as I said before, to do the complicated ones that you think there might be issues with. And
Kingsport's, yeah, that's
Joanne would know those, just-
Kingsport's probably the one that's most complicated. It's neat to go out and look to the Hawkins Cove one as well, which isn't an easement. It's just that city property we've just kept an eye on for years, but especially because there's going to be some activity happening. So that's a fun one too. Okay. All right. So my next step, so I'll send out a spreadsheet for everybody to sign up. I also had on my list, I think in March, Trudy, you may have suggested this. And I actually thought it was a good idea too, was I don't know why I said it that way. Not that that's surprising, but I think it is a good idea.
Well,
But
I
just
don't know.
I know, sorry, it came out not the way I meant it to. But it might just be good to have a conversation about what it is we're looking for. So make sure we're all on the same page, especially because we're not doing these as a group anymore. And so, yeah, I just wanted to sort of open that conversation up. And I'll start. So the main 2 things that we've always sort of collected is, 1, we filled out that easement monitoring form, which I'll send around to everybody again. And then at least when I started, we were each taking sort of 2 representative photos of the easement as well, that we were collecting. Does that sound right? Okay. And then you guys can send that all to me if you want, and then I can put it on that shared drive if that works for everybody. That's now housed at the city, which is great. So those are the 2 main things we're sort of collecting. But yeah, I just wanted to go over with folks when we're out on the site, what are the main things that we need to be really keeping an eye out for? And I can kind of open that up. I also want to mention before I do that, I think one thing that's helpful, if we have it, which we don't for a lot of these places, but if there is an existing easement that has, or a deed that has easement terms in it, probably doesn't hurt to review that before you go out on the site. It's really, really helpful. For example, like with Kingsport, before reading through that in detail, I didn't realize you couldn't have a couple of things that you couldn't have on there. So it was really helpful to kind of go over
Where
that
do we
again.
find that? I noticed that in the guidelines when I was looking at that, and I don't know about.
Oops, in there. It's on the Annapolis Conservancy Board website. It's a little bit funky to find them. I'll try to send a link with some good directions on where to find those. And again, they don't all have that, but for the ones that do, I think it's just handy to look that over before you go out, because some of them do have some specific restrictions, like Kingport.
So some of them do different, I mean,
They're all a bit
in the
different,
world
I
of
think.
conservation easements, every property is different, but if a lot of these are sort of easements on subdivision, there's some common themes of not cutting down the forest,
Yeah, I
or
think there's some
building
basic
structures
ones.
or, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, generally in the past, what we've looked for is no trash, no dumping, and no encroachment into the easement. Although some of the ones, although we don't really actively monitor some of them, those ones anymore, but there are some that were earlier easements that are just kind of a very small strip of trees between a road and the back of houses, and those we kind of gave up on because people think they're their backyard, and it's just
Yeah.
like not possible to.
Losing battle. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a few little strips around like that, that are parts of other easements. So like August Woods has a big chunk of forest, but then it also has a lot of these little strips around the perimeter. And then I think that the one, I think it's called the Muntz property that Tom usually monitors, like also has a little bit of strip areas like that too, although it has a larger, big
with
forested
Harness
area as
Creek,
well.
that area. Is that the?
It's next to Quiet Waters.
That's,
I don't know.
yeah, I'm getting the name wrong. Yeah, I know where you're talking. I went out to that one, I think, last time. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Munn's property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the one that's probably the little question is that little thumb that kind of sticks out on the other side of the road. I mean, the one side of the road is fairly easy to be able to survey and monitor.
Yeah.
Other one that gets a little bit touchy.
Well, it goes, yeah, through some people's backyards, so it's not. It's a little strange. I think I need to look back through my emails. I had emailed with the city about that one because a resident had a question about somebody putting stuff in their backyard, and whether or not that was in an easement. And I don't think there is actually anything that the city has on that portion of the property. I think.
Oh, okay.
Let me double check my emails, because I remember we dug into that.
Yeah, I think, Joanne, also one of the things about that unique easement is that there was definitely no love lost at all between the Munns, I believe, sisters, and the city. And I think their desire to leave that property wasn't so much of, boy, we really like Annapolis, but keep away from it. We'll tolerate somebody looking at it so it stays green, but we don't want it part of the city.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think it's county property, isn't it? Or the county has the easement or something. There's something in the county's involved somehow, but
I know. That's what I remember too.
Is there a practice we have about advancce notification or?
That's been something we've talked about before. And gosh, if you guys remember Jan, who was, I guess he was a city arborist for a while. So he had tried to reach out to people in advance before we went out. So I remember talking to him about that. But I think the hard part was we didn't have up-to-date records of who to contact. So that's
not necessarily a thing that's required in the easement docs that we're seeing. Okay. No. It'd just be more if we decided to do that.
Heads up.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we did have that letter, I think that I think Meg Hosmer had put together, or somebody
Meg
or somebody had put together a letter for like at least letting them know that we had been there. And
yes, I think it was on the back end. Yeah,
it was the back end.
It was to kind of say we went out and checked, and part of it was just to remind folks, hey, you've got this kind of area, and here's what that means. And we check it every year. We just checked it, looks awesome. Or, well, we found a little bit of trash, just might want to keep an eye on it, kind of thing, So I think there was enthusiasm for doing that. I think the part where it always falls short is just finding the people to send that letter to. So I don't know if anyone wants to take a crack at sort of finding those people, and you could start with SDAT, State Department of Assessment and Taxation records, and see what you can find.
What if and I don't mean to add to our burden, but what if those, we do 6 sites or something, or whatever we end up doing, and that letter, it's not, I mean, it doesn't seem to me it's a huge burden to go and put it in the property manager's box, and the time it would take me to drive to Annapolis, whatever it was that I went through, the gardens, not garden, but whatever that one's called, and stick a letter in it. I could do that as fast as I could find who really owned. I mean, all of these affordable, all these multifamily, they spend all their time hiding who they really are anyway with
Yeah, it's
LLC.
hard.
So it's a sort of, so just a,
That's a,
but
yeah.
it's not, I mean, why don't we get to that stage? And I like the idea of the letter exactly, and what we say that we, remind them what it is and we expected it. Why don't we maybe could raise the question when we get to that stage again of how should we get them to people? I mean, I don't think it's a huge, that's
a good idea.
Distances are very vast. It's not like we have to drive. I mean, you can drive around all these sites in a morning and stick a letter wherever. Anyway, finding
it's not a bad idea.
Finding the real owners is just a thankless task, I think. The conversation I would appreciate is, in my innocence, when I joined this board, I never forgotten, Karen, we went to look at Kingsport, and I start looking at to whether it's my idea of a neat and tidy looking forested land, with, look at those dead trees and look at this, shouldn't they be cleaning this up? And Karen educated me that, no, that was good for the environment. So this is sort of mine. You go and look and you don't really see rubbish, but you don't see anything attractive about it. I mean, there's no paths, I'm trying to think of that little island of that place. I can't remember its name right now because I'm forgetting names, but there's nothing about it that would make you want to use it or even look at it, really. It's just there, a big tangle of bushes, and I don't quite know what I'm supposed to think about that kind of easement. That one was the one that puzzles me. If it's not to make it look usable and attractive, it's just to make it look natural and rubbish free. I mean, you experts, I would appreciate some guidance on that one.
I think the main thing to look for is vines growing up the trees, because especially English ivy, because that will kill the trees eventually. So that's like a big thing.
Okay.
I mean, there are other invasive species, but I think the other ones are probably losing battle to try to do anything about, like, for the most part. But the vines on the trees can be a big problem that we might want to try to do something about. But then also, like, we have sent out letters in the past when landscapers were dumping vegetation. So if you see something that looks obviously like grass, a big pile of grass clippings or a big pile of leaves that somebody had raked up and then dumped into the forest easement, like, that's something that we usually comment on, just because it's a way that they might bring invasive species into the easement. So we have alerted people to please don't do that when we have noticed that in the past. But I'd say those are the main things from my perspective. I don't know, Joanna and Linda, if you have any other.
That's helpful. I was going to say, I kind of view it as a organic or inorganic matter. Like, is it something dumped there that's metal versus just old stumps or something, because but that's helpful, Karen, to your comment about that sort of debris and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it might not always be pretty to the human eye, but, it's good habitat for the critters. So, there's just a whole host of different conservation values on different properties. Some of it is for public enjoyment, but some of it is just, to help our ecosystems function better and clean the air and stuff. So
I've never seen the easement monitoring form that you mentioned, Joanna. Does that help at all? If you take that with you, does it have any boxes to check off?
Yes. Well, it has, I can probably pull one up for you. Yeah, it sort of says, I can't remember exactly what it says. Hold on.
It's pretty general. I think the fill-in stuff is just about like where you are and what day it is and who's there. But Otherwise, I think it just has a place for notes mostly.
Like it doesn't have a lot of prompts, like, have you noticed this? Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be great, even as an attachment, if one of you pros would like to take this and do a little checklist, that would be helpful, because this board doesn't always appoint people who are totally experts in.
Well, and even, I don't know, it's just helpful, even if you do it sometimes, to think about it, like Linda was just mentioning, if you work on really large easements, you're not looking for some of these things that we look for on the smaller urban easements
Yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, I think it's just to remind anybody it's helpful. So this is a sheet we have. So as Karen was mentioning there, Racine's, just sort of the date, the general size, which you can kind of get off the website, who was inspecting it. And then, yeah, there's just some pretty basic stuff like general observations, if you see any issues with it, and then recommendations you have.
What if somebody one of you expert just wrote us a list of some of these kinds of, just a little checklist. We could then know what we might be supposed to write on this form, but it would just be a prompt that you would have of whether you needed to check the box or just these
Make sure you're looking. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Does anybody want to volunteer to put that together? It's pretty basic.
Yeah, I mean, I can look at our my organization's checklist.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be great.
Add in a couple things that Karen had mentioned.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, that really would be helpful, because then you would know how to fill out. I would find that helpful. Yeah. And one of these days, we've had board members who came and went, and I don't think some of them always knew what, we didn't give them much training of what to look for too.
No, that's good. I appreciate you asking again. I think
I did know the time we went to see about 100 dumped tires that was, I got that one.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, I know.
But they were all that
awful,
easy.
but I know. You get kind of excited, like, I know.
Yeah, that was really something. We found it.
I know. Taking a picture of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this is really good. I appreciate talking about it too. And then taking 2 pictures still works for you guys?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So that's good. I don't think I had anything else to really talk about with the easement monitoring. But you guys have any questions? I think we're pretty good. Thanks, Linda, for putting that sheet together. Oh, I do have a question. This came up the last time too. So, and I don't know if you know this, Linda, but hang on, I actually have it. We have these little signs that we've attached. Oh, I shouldn't say we, because I haven't done it, but through the years that have been attached to the easements that say it's a little conservation area. And so I think in March, again, we talked about some of these signs are starting to fall down, or the trees are falling down themselves that they're attached to. Do we want to go back and nail them in? Do we want to see if the city can do it? Or are we okay to do that ourselves? So I'll leave you to talk amongst that. I'm going to grab the sign so I can show you what it looks like. I can take a picture of it too.
Another issue that came up with the signs that we had discussed many years ago, but never came to any conclusion about, is that when you nail it flush to the tree will eventually start growing around the sign. And if there was a better way to hang them so that it didn't damage the tree. But I don't think we never found a solution for that. So I guess if we're going to put new ones up, maybe just don't nail them in quite so tightly so the tree has some room to grow. I don't know.
Well, this is interesting. I haven't looked at the language in these in a while, so I don't know if you guys can see this at all. This is just basically what it looks like, and I can take a picture and send it to you. But it says this property is permanently protected in its natural state as a result of a conservation easement between the owner and the city of Annapolis. So that may not apply to that many properties actually that we look at.
They use them everywhere anyway.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Is that a problem? Does anybody feel bad about that?
Oh, no. I think more important is the phone number correct of where it says to call.
Gosh, I don't know. It says to call the planning director at the Annapolis Planning and Zoning Department.
Is it something where you think it should say Annapolis Conservancy Board? Is that why you're chuckling? why it says the wrong thing.
No, I think
Well,
it should go to the city, but I just don't know if it's the
I don't
city
know if it
departments have
has a
all changed
number.
around over the years since they printed these. And I don't even know if that phone number is correct anymore.
I don't know. I can send this to you, Racine. Could you see if it's still relevant? It's a 263-7961 is the number. Yeah.
I like the idea of the message, that's for sure.
Mhm.
You know, says don't dump in a certain way. It says we're watching this site.
Yeah.
Don't abuse it, you know, and
It says, yeah, it is illegal to cut trees, build structures, alter the landscape, or otherwise damage the area in any way without the express permission of the Annapolis Conservancy Board. Yeah, isn't that cute? So-
cute.
Yeah, so I can take a picture so you guys can see it. Do we
Yeah.
want to? Oh, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, it was me, Racine. If
sorry,
you would
Racine.
just take a picture of that so
Mhm.
that when I'm
Yeah.
talking to Sally and or Eric or whoever I'm talking to, I have something to show them.
Yeah, okay. And I'm not sure why. I think Brian just gave them to me one day, so I have them in my house. So I can give them to you too, Racine, if
Hey,
you'd like them. but
What, is it just like a laminated piece of paper or?
It's metal.
Metal.
Oh, it is metal.
Metal.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Joanne, just what used to be, there used to be many, many moons ago, a very small amount for the Conservancy Board to do with, to buy signs, for example, or to print brochures, or to do something on that order. But it was a set amount, I want to say it was definitely not to exceed $500, but it was something that was done specifically in order to get the word out to to people, in order to have something that would make it so that when they went around and nailed them to trees, that they would in fact stay for as long as it would be possible for them to stay,
Mhm.
and then they were replenished as needed over the years as they went through.
Okay.
Anyway, tidbit of
We-
useless information.
But we haven't
Oh,
had,
no, it's helpful.
they haven't given us any money since Ellen Moyer left office, though.
Yeah.
They cut us out
What
after
about
that.
the program getting some program open space money? Is
Oh,
that,
maybe.
or
don't know.
something that we're working on already to get a little bit of money for surveying and stuff?
So that is, the money for surveying is
Oh, that's.
Critical Area Commission.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, fee in
Okay.
lieu Critical Area Commission. So I don't know how the POS money works at the city, and I don't know how
I
that,
don't know for sure, but signage is definitely.
It's in there,
something
yeah.
That, might typically be included, but,
what do you guys
well,
think?
I think it's kind of interesting to also think about on some of the bigger easements that are maybe more gnarly has anyone, if you go out, if you notice, is there any like maybe better mechanism to put a sign in? Like on a fence, if we got permission or something that's versus the tree? That's a whole another endeavor, but just to keep your eyes
Think.
peeled for.
Mhm.
Probably something on a stake you could
Yeah.
pound into the ground would be more universally applicable. We haven't got too many fences to.
That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. No.
But could we at least start by on this form checklist that Lynn's gonna do, say, is there a
See
sign
it.
that, let's see.
Yeah,
how
yeah,
many are
okay,
he's
that's good.
left. Maybe, I'm not trying to postpone everything, but it's a way to,
No, I
Yeah,
get it.
that's
It's good.
we'd know how many,
Yeah, what the,
if we really get to the point where we need a modest amount of money like that to do signs, I bet you like a community foundation's got some family fund that wants to do environmental or, let's
we could
figure
find a
out
way. Yeah.
figure out, we got X number of sites and only
Mhm.
3 signs left, or whatever we've got left.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch. I don't know how
I
many are in
don't,
this.
I don't think there are many signs left.
Shit.
I didn't have the impression that there were
I
many.
think in those smaller easements, some of the ones you've been looking at, Trudy, I don't feel like
No.
those have them. I remember seeing them on Kingsport. I've seen them here on the one in Eastport. Trying to think where else I've seen them. So
Another reason for doing them, in addition to everything else, is that it says they're meant to be preserved in their natural state. And so you don't get residents of these multifamily developments saying, why don't you clean
looks
up
messy
your
or-
island?
right.
You know, I mean, it helps the people understand what it is. It's a natural.
No, it's important.
It
Yeah,
is important. I agree.
it
That
helps
sounds good.
avoid lawsuits.
Yep.
I'd say if we have, so let's just note that for each one, and then
Okay.
somebody can maybe be the sign putter upper of anything that's we've noted is missing or something, and just treat it as a task, you know, like somebody can deliver the after letters and somebody could put the
Yeah.
signs up, you know, I mean, those are not huge. They don't require a week out of your life to do those kind of.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll look for that during the monitoring visit, see what
See
signs
where
are.
we are and then what we've got and get them
Okay.
up. Maybe this year, that could be our vow for to start 2022 with a sign in every place.
Sign in every easement. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, we could, sorry, I had to go let the dogs out, but
It's okay.
if somebody already said this, I apologize for repeating, but maybe we could just make a note when we're inspecting of
Yeah.
whether the sign's there or not.
Yeah, I'll say, is there a
What condition
sign
it is.
and then is there an obvious place to put a
Put
sign?
one,
Karen,
yeah.
we did while you were out letting the dogs out, but we also said, and then any missing signs would be Karen's responsibility.
Yeah.
I was close enough that I know I didn't hear my name.
That teacher
Shoot.
let the
I
dog
wasn't
out.
very far from the computer.
Shoot, good try, Trudy. Good try.
Okay.
Oh gosh. All right. So that was good.
Later.
Thank you guys. Oh, what'd you say,
Yeah,
Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, I was just waving goodbye to Karen, but, you know, one of the issues too, I mean, it could just be as easily, you know, if you've got you know, if you're going to be assigning an area, just whoever is assigned to walk through the area, take a look at it, and if it requires a sign, just put one up then,
Yeah.
you know, and just make that the, you know, responsibility of the individual who's checking the individual property. If
Yeah.
marked sufficiently, that's the call of the you know, representative of the board. So terrific, nothing needed. If it's not, that way it'll save an extra, you know, extra time or an extra trip back out there. Just again, 2 cents worth, because the big thing is just to notify the people who may be crossing through, like you mentioned, that you know, there's a reason why gee, we just had the tornado come through. Well, why haven't anybody come and cleaned it up? Well, it's preserved in its natural state, or, you know, however that would fall. But, you know, it notifies anybody who would be walking through there, and it also gives them a way to contact or somebody to contact if, in fact, they do have a gripe saying, gee, we think for safety factors, something should be done. You know, at least that way it encourages communication.
I think that's fine. Let's put on the form if you didn't do it and there isn't one there. So, you know, it
Yeah.
requires follow-up. That'll save
Yeah,
Karen, that'll save Karen
again,
some time.
whatever's easiest for everybody, or we can just assign it to Karen, like you said.
That's good. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, all right. Any other comments or questions related to monitoring for signs?
Well, thank you. That was helpful for me. That's the biggest discussion I can remember we have of what we're supposed to
Oh,
be
gosh, okay.
doing out there doing. So thanks. And I think a checklist would be lovely.
Yeah, that's always great.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. Okay, so the other item I really want to go over with you guys today, which may not seem exciting, but it can be rules of procedure. So I don't know if you when this came up, but I think it was with our conversation about the gate at Kingsport, we learned that we are supposed to have rules of procedure. It's actually in the city code that the Annapolis Conservancy Board should have rules of procedure, and we do not. So
Where did this draft come from? How did this start? Whatever this is.
So I put it together over the past couple of days, and Ashley had sent me a while back kind of a draft of what other boards used. And so I used that as sort of a template, and I added in some of these pieces that seem more relevant to us. And she had also sent over some of the rules of procedure or something similar that other boards have, like the liquor board and the arts and public places board. So So we had those two to sort of look through to see if there's anything that seemed, like a good thing to pull over. So I took a crack at adding in some of the procedures where I know we've had questions before, we've run into some troubles before, and I have some specific questions for you about some of these things, but I also wanted to see if there are other things that we should add to the rules of procedure that aren't here. So those are the two things I'd love to go over with you guys. And before we jump in, since Ashley is still with us, Ashley, if you're available, and this is a question for everybody too, some of the things that are in other groups' rules of procedures, they overlap with what we have in the bylaws. So I kept those out of the rules of procedure. It didn't seem like it was necessary to have them in both places, but I don't know if that matters or not. So I don't know, Racine or Ashley, if you're able to speak to that. Nah. And I can just double check with people afterwards.
I don't know
That's okay.
how to answer that question.
No worries. I will, so I can email Ashley and others about that after this meeting. But so basically I'm saying that because some people's rules of procedure have things about like how long the chair stays in place, your quorum, things like that. But we put that in our bylaws. So I just left that out. So
Well,
hopefully
wait,
this makes
is this
sense.
where we get to say Joanne will be our permanent chairman?
No. You missed it. That was in the bylaws. We passed those. So
Yeah, I'm thinking I got the good deal with the signs.
yeah, that's right.
I'll deliver the letters.
Pansies. No, Karen, you certainly did. You did a long time. So the main things that I kept in here again were not those kinds of things about like quorums and voting and all that kind of stuff and our makeup, but it was more like the processes that we need to follow. So the couple that I added in here were our procedure for easement monitoring, procedure for, I call it addressing easement concerns. We can rename that, but basically when we have someone who comes to us and says, someone's dumping in this thing, you guys need to check it out and deal with that. There's a process that we follow that's written out, that we know, who's responsible for doing what. And that I'll tell you, as we went through the last kind of questions about that gate at Kingsport, for me, it would have been super helpful because I kind of had to make a lot of decisions just off the top of my head. And I thought, hopefully this is a good way to do this. But so I think this would be really nice to have for when those kinds of things come up. And it just sort of covers us, if someone asks why you did or didn't include someone in the discussion. And then I also just wrote up here procedure for easement enforcement, again, because this has come up a couple of times for a different gate issue on Kingsport, and could come up with others. Simply, I wanted to put in there to make sure it's clear that we are not, as an Annapolis Conservancy Board, in charge of enforcement. That is really the city's responsibility. We are a recommendatory body to the city. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in there to make sure that was clear for anyone that has those kinds of questions. Okay, so starting, for those who had a chance to look at it, any big questions or thoughts that came to mind?
I'll give you my big comment. I read it carefully and I have some nits, which maybe you and I later, because we don't want to make this meeting go on forever. But to me, the biggest issue I thought was after we have our procedures for monitoring, I felt like it didn't quite work to say, oh, and if the board found something, you go to C through H. Because the biggest thing I thought is the last thing we want to do is not give people an opportunity to fix and drag them into this elaborate public shaming process. And I just felt like when the board finds something, we probably should have our own section so that it's procedures for each and procedure for addressing concerns. And one would be if the board finds it, and how we report it, what do we do internally, and then offer a chance to fix and whatever. And then the public might be different, but I didn't find mixing them together left us, but mostly I just don't think we want to get in the position that we don't let people fix something, before we start working them through the ringer of the public notice.
I like that.
So that was my biggest thought, is just, and we are different than the public. I would think stepping back and saying, what would the board do? You know, we go on these field trips, we find something, it seems serious. Well, what do? We talk about it as a board, we decide, we offer to fix it. I mean, that happens more than the public gets riled up. And so I just thought, I just start and write that again. Somebody write that section and then go on to a public complaint, you know, and see what would happen there, because there might have to be more due process there. But that was my biggest overall in the guidelines. We won't be very popular if we don't allow people to fix. You know, and we start sending notices and letters to their neighbors and all, you know, I mean, most people are going to fix whatever we tell them to fix. So, and then, you know, and then we would monitor to the end, and maybe we give them a letter that says they've cleared up their violation. I mean, you know, you're all good lawyers and just like, what would our process be before we worry about the public process?
I think that sounds great. And do you guys want to try and lay that out really quickly now, or do one of you want to try and take a stab at it and we can all respond to it over email?
I'm game to talk. I mean, I don't know, I'll just talk that through. I'd rather talk that through and then send you my nits or give you a call about my nits than waste people's time. But I mean, I know the simple ones. We go on a visit and we find some serious violation, right? We find a violation then what? It comes back to the board to agree that that's of significance. Or what, you know, because wouldn't the board have to take some action that we agree that's a violation?
I think probably. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, so I think that, and it becomes a, you know, sort of a legal interpretation. You know, the city attorney has a role in that. So, but I agree overall, Trudy, with your overarching statement. That was sort of what struck me is, and I like the notion of sort of two different things, but how do we accommodate a public input into, you know, asking questions? But yeah, I think there's a step there that we need to contact the owners first and gather information.
So all right. So after, if you're on a site visit, you see something that looks a bit squirrely, want to bring that back to the board and say, hey, I saw this. What do you guys think? Is this something we need to do something about? And then I guess we would
determine a course of action.
I like that. Because in some cases, it could just be like what we've run into before. Like Karen, you mentioned someone was like landscapers were putting stuff in there, or there's a tire or something. It's like, well, that's not a huge, like, you know, that's just sort of calling someone maybe, or sending a letter initially and saying, hey, we found this, could you remove it? And then if not, we go back and check, and then, you know, it gets a little bit more advanced. Sorry, I feel like I took us on a tangent. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, this what we just went through with the padlock on the gate going, you know, from, you know, between the houses, Kingsport. That probably was a good template that could, you know, I would think could be followed. In the fact that, and that even came with their own disagreement, you know, as far as having them address it. But go through those same steps that they went through, and it was resolved up to and including, you know, going through for, you know, for a legal procedure. I mean, if you really want to use one as a template, you know, just take it, generify it, so to speak, and go from there.
Go ahead, keep going.
No, it was just, you know, if you're looking for something, because we can all come up with way too many separate options. But I mean, if you want to take something and then, you know, simplify it from there, that might be a way to go.
So that is what's in there under the procedure for addressing easement concerns. That's kind of the process we followed. I left out some things that you know occurred that you guys are kind of bringing up, which I wanted to ask you about. But so that, I think, make sense for the, when a member of the public comes to us and says, there's this thing that shouldn't be there. Do you
Right,
feel
but
like?
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just thinking, even if we go forward with, with a letter saying, hi, we saw a tire, we did this, or, and it's come across on this portion of the easement, we'd in essence still have to follow, I think, the procedures that were there. I think the procedures that were in place helped tremendously as far as resolving, resolving Kingsport. So,
Well, yeah, and I would say there were no procedures in place, so that was all ad hoc, just so you know. But yeah, but so those are the steps that are in here under the procedure for addressing easement concerns, like when a member of the public brings it to us. I guess the thing Trudy was talking about is there might need to be sort of a slightly different kind of process if it's something that we come across when we're monitoring that's maybe not as big of a concern or what have
right.
you.
I mean, those can be done with what occurred, and then simplify it down to as low as you'd like to simplify it. And then it would have a structure to build in that you can take it. If somebody said, well, what can I do, or how can I do this, or what do I have to do? You already have, again, the template that's been followed, that's been successful. Yeah, I'd probably need to read it. I apologize. I was only able to give it a
That's okay.
I think that, oh, go ahead. Well, I was going to say it's really hard to, sort of edit, but I think this is a good template and it just needs some massaging. And I mean, I think the part that struck me was this sort of suggestion of setting up the public person that raised the violation together with the landowner on potentially a meeting agenda. So I think, I'm happy to massage it offline to give some starter suggestions for tweaking along the lines of what people have suggested. And then if we could circulate it, I mean,
that would be perfect. I would love for somebody to do that. Yes.
I think I feel like that's what you're looking for, of like specific recommendations, but I think it's a little challenging to do on a call.
That would be great.
Well,
But
we could either do that or have the final determination being, pistols at 20 paces at dawn, and that wins.
We'll sign that to Karen next time she takes the dogs out.
There you go.
Karen is getting slammed.
But let me just go back for a minute to our, which I do feel it's different from the public. Just to which is, so we all go on these trips and we write down, we find violations, and we don't know whether individually we found what we found. We don't know whether they consider the kind of thing where you write a letter and you say, next year we want to, we found you dumped some grass seed, don't do that next year. But then there'll be something that we want them to fix. And I feel like you're going to be seeing them all. The board chair would bring back the items that seem like they need to be fixed now. And maybe then the board decides, or the chair decides, somebody decides these are significant enough. We want them fixed now. And we want the person to report back to us that they're fixed. We don't have any way to sort out ivy on trees versus 100 tires dumped. I feel like that's a different issue. We don't have to have lots of big process. I don't think what's our job to look at them and get problems fixed, isn't it? And then they report back, and then if there's issues that they won't fix them or haven't fixed them in time, we don't get many of those, but I feel like it gives more meaning to our work if we find something that's worth humming. We don't have a system now that does anything more than file them, and that's all I'm getting at, is if there are things that we can just say and put in a letter and say, we hope next year we don't find that same thing, or there are things that's a grievous, you're blocking your, you put a fence around your site or whatever, you've got to fix that. So that's all I was trying to get at. And then how do we as a board decide what needs to be fixed? And then we write a letter and they write back. And if no action has been taken, and then we'll monitor. I mean, it's not a big deal because we probably won't have one every 3 years, and that we monitor and see if they fixed by the deadline that we gave them, and then what do you do next? I don't know what you do next, but something. That's all I was getting at. That feels different to me than the public process. Where
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's all I was.
Hope that, does
I
that
know-
give you, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I want to say. So I don't feel like they're merged, that the public can be
Right.
merged with ours. I think we just need to sort out a little more micro, who does what when we find something that's,
I think it's great.
suppose they've chopped down a whole bunch of trees or cleared
Right.
out all the natural shrubbery or something really, and they should be replanting those trees, or I don't know, something of a
Right.
scale, That's all and I don't think one person on the board, one visitor can decide what's significant all by themselves. I think that's worthy of the
I don't
board.
wanna, yeah.
So it's definitely for board consideration,
Okay.
and potentially if, it's egregious, then bringing it to the
We would
city
need to
attorney's
bring in,
attention.
yeah.
But then can't we have the authority to try to fix it before we bring it to the city's attorney? That's what I was getting. Do we really?
I think that's a good question for
Do
us
we
to
really have
discuss.
to make everything so lawyer city? I mean, what's our job to identify something? Now
Yeah, I
you think
think,
the city attorney, if they didn't fix it, I'm not disagreeing
right,
with that, but whatever that process is, I think we should try to write it down and agree on it. I think that's more important because we'll have more of those, I hope, than the public
right.
protesting. We never had a public protest before, did we?
Beats me.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one I know of. But, okay, so hopefully that gives you enough to go on there, Linda. I think you're right. And one thing that might be a good step, I think we've kind of done this before, is after everyone's done monitoring, the next board meeting is, I could sit down and say, okay, 4 of our sites said they have vines. Yeah, what do we want to do about that? We had 2 that had, significant oil or whatever it was, right? Trees are down or something. And then we discuss it at that point and say, how serious is this? How far do we want to take this at the present time? And obviously, like you said, there's something time sensitive and really serious. We may need to pull in somebody to help with dealing with that. But otherwise, probably writing a letter and saying, we're going to check back in like 60 days and we'll be back if it's not resolved.
I think we've treated it like a pro forma requirement, and we're going to do it and we care about it. Let's at least describe a system to repair things.
I like it. Does that give you enough, Linda, to work from? Awesome. I think my main question, which you brought up, or Trudy and Tom, and I think everyone's kind of mentioned this, is also with when a member of the public makes like a comment. And again, this is where it really depends on what it is, because we have had members who've said, I'm seeing dumping of yard waste in an easement, right? So that's quite different from someone has erected a fence in terms of severity. And so obviously, if someone's dumping yard waste, I don't particularly think we necessarily need to have a meeting where they're coming in front of us and we're sort of scolding them or whatever, and going through all of that. But there are occasions, as just came up this past year, where we do need to make it more formal because there are lawyers involved. And so that's mainly what this is meant to serve. But I would love you guys to take a good look at this and see, to make sure it feels like it allows for us to deal with less severe problems in a less severe way, I guess. Does it feel like it allows for that? So that's one thing I'd love for you to look at. And the other piece, I think, is just when a member of the public brings something to us, even if it is a little bit more severe, should there be an opportunity at which we're having a conversation with the landowner one-on-one to say, what's the deal here? Or do we need to go through this process, or can you fix this? I like that. One question I would say I love to see how you guys feel is, who should be doing that? Should that be the board chair? Should that be the city at that point? If it's a direct one-on-one conversation with a landowner, I just kind of think through that in your heads. I don't know.
Does our attorney have any?
Oh, gotcha.
I'm not sure if she's available, but Ashley, if you're available.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
So I think if you guys can initiate the conversation, But you might want to have like Racine or someone from planning and zoning there, not necessarily to speak per se, but to at least keep in the loop, because ultimately at the end of the day, the board's powers are limited to, recommendations to the city. So if you think your recommendations are going to reach a point where you're going to want enforcement or correction, I would loop in at least someone. It doesn't have to be the city attorney's office, but someone from
like
one of the
that.
applicable departments, just so they're aware of what's going on at an early stage.
I think that's.
Yeah.
I like that.
You only really need to loop in the law office if you think it's going to get contentious, or you're
Clear
not
notice.
you're not sure how to proceed, or the department has a question. I don't think you're always welcome to involve my office for everything, but I think minor issues that everyone is, open to resolving don't necessarily need to get elevated all the way up.
Yeah, like we're not going to do anything if we have a friendly call, say, listen,
Right.
want to give you a heads up. This has been brought to our attention. We've been out to visit. We feel like it should be removed. We'll give you some time to do that. We'll check back. And if they're in agreement, great. But if we're not precluding, it getting to a legal situation where we have all of our rights through the city that will enforce it just by having a conversation verbally and notifying them. We still can formally notify them.
Yeah, I think as long as you guys have a sort of a standardized process of how you approach it, then there's no legal issues with you guys handling the first friendly outreach and check. But you just want to make sure that you're doing it as consistently as possible with everyone.
Yeah, that is the main thing. Okay. All right. So that was really helpful. I think those are the main questions.
On the public stuff, I didn't find anything there except they need a chance to fix it, which we just talked about. And I thought the public part worked fine. I just wanted to get our own little internal, how do we get going process spelled out separately. That was my.
No, I think it's a great ad. Okay, so maybe, do you guys have any other things you want to talk about related to what's currently in here? Okay, and then I wanted to see, are there any other processes that we need to consider adding in?
Well, what struck me was, do we have any guidelines on what we will accept? Are we just here to receive the easement
open
that
arms
we want us to take?
Yep.
Because that would be a procedural of, like, what are our procedures for deciding what easements to accept? That would be more of a standard thing of treating people fairly. If they wanted to donate an easement to us, how do we consider and evaluate those? But if we're just here to sort of take what the city wants to get, then, maybe we don't need those.
That came up, and I have that in my notes that I was going to check with you guys about. Someone brought that up last time, do we need to talk about which ones we accept and monitor? And do we need like a process for that? So I'll leave that open to you guys. In the past, I think it has been sort of, we've taken whatever is coming through. And I think also in the past, we didn't necessarily know some of the ones, like these Forest Conservation Act things and other things. We weren't really as in the loop.
What if
I
there
don't
was
know if we have
just
say, because a lot of them come through planning and zoning. I mean, we don't.
Oh, yeah.
What if there was just a section that got added about how things come in? It doesn't have to get all the way to the perfect word about what the answer is, but just a section that says part of our, here's what you would, they would indicate their interest to the board, and the board would just, it would just to say, aren't there some procedures, if something, I'm a homeowner and I want to give, isn't there something we could write down about how they come in? I'm not talking about the city stuff, just the individual private person, that we might seek them, we might, and that they might be offered. I mean, both could be ways that a potential private easement could come in, and that what we would do next, we'd do these 2 or 3 things next, the board would, and that we would need information that they own the land and what it is and blah, 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 you know, what an easement package would be, and how we, the board, would consider it and look at it and give them an so we don't have to get to the, you know, necessarily what the legal answer might be, but just how we would structure to receive it and evaluate it. Then we would, know, whatever that would be. I guess if the board said we'd like to accept it, then I don't know, does it go to goes to the city? I mean, just that kind of, just a new section, it's just the process, assuming that we're hopeful that someday somebody's going to walk in with that great piece of property that we want. So I maybe just a little new section like that. How do you?
Okay, I can look at doing that.
How do you offer
Thanks,
up?
Linda. Yeah.
Boy, Linda's oh man.
I know.
I'll
Get
deliver
going.
your letters and check your signs. Put up your signs for you.
Hey, it's all really helpful.
Me with the paper, with the office work, and not the outdoors. No, it's fine. I can
appreciate that.
Just put a few bullets in there.
No, thank you. And yeah, I think that's good too. And it's nice, Trudy, also, this might give us an opportunity to check in with the Office of Planning and Zoning and say, hey, we know that this happens. We wrote up a process for it. Would you follow it? Or just something there that says Planning and Zoning will inform us, maybe through our liaison, Racine, or for, whatever mechanism that they're considering doing this. And, they just let us know, just so it's in there. Can't hurt.
And wouldn't we also see in a perfect world, we would have somebody who says, I want to give you my backyard,
we can put that in there.
That has nothing to do with coming in through planning and zoning, but would say,
oh yeah, all the options.
New proposals could come in this way, and here's what we would do.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
I think that'd be good.
It's nice to have that written down too. I think it's also good, Trudy, for like long-term knowledge of, as new board members come in, there's a place where they understand like, oh, okay, easements come in through these different ways. I know like Linda, when you came on board, you had that question, right? Is like, well, how do you get easements and what are the ways that has happened in the past? So it just helps to keep all this stuff written somewhere. Okay, that all sounds great to me. So yeah, Linda, if you can work on that and we can distribute it before the next meeting and then maybe have something we vote on at that point. I do have a question, Ashley, if you're available with the rules of procedure, and I can email Ashley if she doesn't know, but my question, or Racine, maybe if you know this, I didn't look through the city code. My memory is that our bylaws had to be approved by the city council. Does that ring a bell with anybody? I may be making that up. Karen's nodding. I remember it was more complex than I thought it was going to be.
It was something like the way our little paragraphs written in the city code, it says that the bylaws would be approved by city council.
Yeah, and
I thought they did though.
They did. I don't know if we need to do that for rules of procedure. So that was my.
No, I don't think so. I think it was just unique to our board because it was somebody had written it that way when they formed the board. So it was in the city code. Yeah, it was just a weird, quirky thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would like to know the answer that you had to the question you had posed earlier that for Ashley, but she wasn't responding about whether the procedures that are in the bylaws need to be repeated in these procedures or not.
Yeah.
Because I had that question as well.
Yeah. Okay.
What was the question? Whether something had to be repeated?
Yeah, so and some of the ones you'd sent me from other boards, their rules of procedure had some of the same things that we already have in our bylaws, like about composition of the board.
You don't have to repeat.
Okay. And yeah, would you mind looking through them, Ashley, when we kind of get a good copy of the, okay, to see if there's anything you think is really missing or.
Yeah, send them my way once you get them sort of where you want. But yeah, no, you don't need to repeat. If it's in one,
we're good.
I mean, if it's really important, I'd put it in the bylaws because that's the stronger document.
Okay.
If it's like really something that you want to be just common law wise, bylaws tend to have a stronger legal pull to them.
Okay.
But that would be my only thought on that.
Okay. All right. And do you know, Ashley, if do our rules of procedure need to be, I don't think they do, but do they need to be adopted by the city council for us?
Have to look at
Okay. No
that
worries.
new legislation went through and I was
Oh.
paying attention to it, and then I don't know what happened to it. So I got to look at that and see, and I'll double check because
Okay.
it wasn't assigned to me. So I was sort of peripherally paying attention to it, but I have to see where it ended up.
Okay. I didn't even know about that. So thank you.
Yeah, there was some new legislation that I think Alderman Arnett was doing, and I have to see how it
Okay.
shook out. Because they kept going back and forth about who it applied to. So
Okay.
I will let you know.
Thank you. All right. That is awesome. Okay. All right. Any other questions about rules of procedure? Thank you, guys.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Good job, everybody. I am somewhat excited. I feel like we're getting our ducks in a row here and
Yeah.
everything lined up. It's exciting. Okay. So other thing just for today, we can go real quick. So updates. I'll go through the ones that I can tell you about. So with the Greenway map, no new real updates there. I'll check back in with planning and zoning and see where they are in terms of what they're planning to add into the draft comp plan that's going to go out at some point here to the public. So I'll check in about that. With the MET easements, I know when it comes to the Hawkins Cove property, we had said we want to go through that visioning process that the city is going to go through for Hawkins Cove before we would really start to move through an easement discussion. Want to make sure we know what pieces will and won't be included on that property before we line up the easement. And I think the easement on Truxton Park, the last time I spoke with Jackie, she felt like there needed to be a conversation with Parks and Rec Department, Archie Trader, to make sure, that, they know we're having these conversations to see what their comfort level is. So I can check in, Racine, with you and Jackie to see where that stands and if it's helpful for us to maybe set up a meeting with MET and Parks and Rec so they, could get all their questions answered.
Yeah, I think what I remember of Jackie's comment the last time is that there's sort of this standing idea that they're not going to put any easements anywhere on Truxton Park.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
But
It's
not set in stone. It's not set in stone. And Archie is a nice guy and easy to talk to. So we can move forward with that.
Okay.
With a conversation.
Okay, so maybe should I just check in with you guys and see?
What I'll do is I'll send an email to Jackie.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Copying the board about setting up a discussion with Park and Recs about putting easements or potential easements in Truxton Park.
Thank you. Yeah. Does that work for everybody else? Any questions? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Ashley, if you're around, I'm going to guess the MOU with the county related to, program open space money is still at the legal department with the county.
Yeah, I will push them again. Last time I talked to their attorney, they said it was stuck in their Rec and Parks department.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's moving around.
Yeah, so I will check in with them as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to bug you every time about that.
No, it's okay. I appreciate the reminder, and I will see what they're doing.
Oh, you guys are great. All right, so then the main one we have here is Racine. If you want to, I'd ask Racine to give us an update on, there was a meeting with the community recently to talk about Hawkins Cove. And so, just hear where you guys are, where you're headed.
That was held, we're in September now, so August 23rd, we held an in-person meeting. We sent flyers around, we canvassed the area. We did not get much of a turnout.
That's a tough month. Yeah.
I don't know how much COVID plays a role in it. I don't know how much the fact that it's public housing, and that plays a role. I heard a couple people that what we did was we were hoping to have some incentives by serving Chick-fil-A and giving out school supplies for the kids. So we had people who showed up for the school supplies and the food and then left.
Darn it.
And there was one occasion when someone from the Hacker property staff said to someone, "Oh, but you should stay and talk and, listen to what they have to say," and so on and so forth. And the comment was, "Well, I don't walk back there. I don't go back there." Okay. So it wasn't much of a turnout, but from those that did turn out, we did get some feedback, and it's a lot like the feedback that we've already gotten for the site. There was an emphasis to sort of leave it in its natural state, put in a living shoreline, or, plant the mud flats, but leave it in its natural state and not develop it too much. Alderman, what's his name? Gay. Alderman Gay. He suggested putting a pavilion back there, that where people could congregate next to the water. So some of the ideas were, let's see, fix the pier, plant native plants, leave it in its natural state, upgrade and fix the footbridges, make the area handicap accessible.
Well, that's okay.
Someone suggested maybe a small playground goes back there. There were concerns about security and lighting and hours of operation, and who's responsible for trash pickup and cleanup of the area. Would it be the city? Would it be the Hacker properties? Who would be responsible for that? Protect all habitat. And those are pretty much the main ideas that came out of it. We're going to have a Zoom meeting next week, and I'm sending out the invite tomorrow.
Oh, great. Okay.
And I'll include everyone on the board in it. And that is to discuss all of the input that we've gotten from, all of the meetings from February, this meeting in August, and where we stand now, moving toward the design portion of the project. So it's not much of an update. It just that's where we stand. And it just seemed like a lot of the same ideas that we heard in the meetings in February.
Okay.
Although the handicap accessible, I had not heard that before, and I think that's a great idea. How it's done outside in an outdoor setting, I'm not sure how it's done, but to make sure a wheelchair would be able to get back there, get access to the pier, and so on and so forth. The engineer, public works engineer, who's the project manager for this project, was there, and someone asked about dredging, and that more than likely, I'm not going to say it's not something that we would do, but it's lower on the list of things to do back there, because first of all, it's extremely expensive. Second of all, the cove is so small, getting motorboats or boats with engines of any kind back there other than a kayak or a paddle board, there's not a lot of room for that anyway. So what would be the need to dredge? But it's a lot of mud back there. And so planting the mud flats is something that we could do moving forward. And that's it. That's pretty much what it was.
Okay.
I still would encourage the board to put in our 2 cents about what we would want to see there. I mean, we've been monitoring this for decades, and we've always talked about the importance of protecting the wetlands where people walk through, and like, having the trail system formalized. But, and I know more recently we were concerned about, making sure the trail doesn't get paved. And also in the past, we've talked about like putting a boardwalk over the wetlands where people currently just tromp through the wetlands.
Right.
But
that
so
came
I
out-
don't know. I don't know if we want to, like, as a board, just like put together some sort of formal recommendation from us. Cause I think like we've, as individuals, have kind of participated in different ways, but we haven't really come up with a recommendation from our board yet.
I would really suggest that would be a good thing to do, because the environmental commission, when there are projects taking place and they have some suggestions that they feel strongly about, they do put it in and they're just like you, they're meant to make recommendations.
Mhm.
So to put it formally in a letter would help inform the design of the project, I think.
I would be very much in favor of doing that. I think that's the kind of thing our board should do. And as you say, we've talked and pondered that more than anything else that I'm aware of. I mean, I think we ought to express our views. I mean, some of the things I hear make me shudder, and I would be quite different, I think, than what we would think a pavilion out in the woods in the dark would be, a night, but anyway, I assume our position would be retaining a more natural use of that cove as much as possible. And it sounds like, given all the ideas floating around, we ought to say that,
Right. And please remember that the biggest piece is the environmental uplift of it, which means planting a living shoreline, or, making it more resistant to sea level rise and bad weather and so on and so forth. So the idea of putting a pavilion or a playground or picnic tables, I mean, not saying that we're not going to do that, but the biggest piece is the environmental piece to it.
And I would assume that's what our feelings would be mostly promoting.
But I would highly encourage you put that in a letter, and you can, let's see, who would you address it to? Let me find out the best person to address it to, because Michael Johnson is the Director of Public Works, and the project is now in their hands. But Jackie is the umbrella under which Michael Johnson falls. So I'm not sure if you should address it to Jackie, or if you should address it to the mayor, or if you should address it to Mike Johnson. So let me check on that and let you know. I'll let you know within the next few days.
Who's the sort of listening group to these ideas? I mean, who's going to write that for the city out of all these meetings and ideas? Does that tell us who the decision maker is on the concept? Does that go to Jackie, or where does that go?
Again, the project is now in the hands of Michael Johnson.
Yeah, but Public Works,
So
do what policymakers tell them to do, right?
Jackie would be, I think, again, she oversees what Mike does to a certain extent. And I think when the design is going through, Jackie's going to be right there.
I think that's
involved in the decision making with the design, and that we will take the input that we've gotten and try to do something that's environmentally friendly, but also what the residents might want to see and might want to use. So a playground, I don't think is something that all residents, some residents might want to see it, but all residents, I don't know, because after dark, who wants their children playing in a playground that's tucked away somewhere? You know what I'm saying? So
I kind of wonder if something like, I don't know if you've seen the little play area that's next to Chesapeake Children's Museum, something like that might fit in there. It'd be a little bit.
I've seen that.
It's a little more natural looking and not big, and but it gives kids something to do if their parents are down there to look at the water or something, But well, I'll volunteer to draft up a letter.
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'll
that would
I'll find out who you need to address it to, and I'll send that to you tomorrow or Monday.
If I could make a suggestion,
Go ahead.
Karen, while you're doing that, if you're going to draft it, I would recommend, only because it's starting to sound like we're getting really outside our lines of what we should be doing. But I think it's appropriate for someone like Joanne, for example, from her position, to write a colleague to colleague letter to get that to the head of Public Works, and then let it go down from there. I think it's good to have a say, but unless we're answering specifically as individual citizens, once we start answering as a board, unless it's from colleague to colleague, we start getting outside of our swim lanes here.
Oh yeah, I was going to draft a letter and send it around for everybody to, comment on, and it can come from Joanna as the chair.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep within the line so things are listened to and not discarded just because we're not, again, within our own lanes.
Yep. Yeah, and I thought I would put some introduction in there about, that we've been doing this monitoring and we're
That'd be
for
awesome.
a long time, and so we're very familiar with the site. And
I like that.
That is very strong and would I think go very well, and it's consistent with again with what our position is, without necessarily coming on as the board speaking.
Yeah, and aren't you interested in putting some sort of an easement back there if you can, or at least on part of the land? So it does fall into
I think it definitely
category
falls
when you're
in.
talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it definitely does. And depending on what goes on the property, it could change whether or not MET would hold an easement. Number one. So that is a big thing. If there's any kind of active recreation, they're not probably going to want to hold it.
And that, that might be one of the suggestions that you put in your letter, is that there is an easement on the property.
Yeah, definitely. I think
in terms of who it's sent to, I'd just say what you
everybody.
Ask Jackie if it shouldn't go to her and let her make the call. I mean, she's the one. I mean, I never thought of us as having a lane that who we could talk to or not talk to. I would talk to whoever we think is likely to be the biggest decision maker.
Sure.
But
we cannot answer as a board though, Trudy. That's why it's got to be from it can be from Joanne to whoever, speaking. She could speak for us, but it can't be done as a board to a board. It changes the entire complexion of things.
Okay, I don't, whatever. I think it's fine to have Joanne sending it as chair of the board, if that.
Or as a colleague, from chairman of the Conservancy board to chairman of planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're saying though, Tom,
city department though, right?
Yeah, we're not really colleagues. I think what
you are a colleague that you head up an entity of the city.
Got it. Okay.
You do not hold that same status as individual board members, but the chair does.
I think
fine. We could be sent by the chair. There's
I don't mind sending it, but I think what you guys are suggesting it would say would, on behalf of the Annapolis Conservancy Board, these are our recommendations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am. I don't know, Tom.
I think that's.
I can't buy that on behalf of the board. she can say from, you know, from her experience in discussing it with board members, this is something that might be helpful. But as soon as we've got anything official coming from the board, we're overstepping what we currently have within our charter.
I don't know, just
have no
ask
authority.
Ashley. She's the lawyer.
How's it,
I mean, let Ashley advise us who.
How is it different from when
we've
we've made recommendations to like the planning commission or anything
Yeah.
like that
We can make,
in the past? Like we, you know,
But
we've,
It always has been within the realm and within the lines of exactly what our charter is. Once it steps outside that, up to and including making recommendations, we no longer can do that.
I think it is in our charter, like to make recommendations
Ashley,
on this.
Ashley's the lawyer for the city. I mean,
Yeah, we can double check that if you want, Tom.
Some other.
I'm pretty sure you guys can make recommendations, but let me look at the code right this second.
Yeah, please do, because, you know, I'm still the one that's sitting there saying that if we come up with something that the city disagrees with, I can personally be charged $5,000 a day for disagreeing with it.
I don't even know.
What?
I don't, come on. I think we all need to get
that-
together.
that was that thing that Tom's
is
correct.
still
That, like, that's
within-
that thing that we had to sign
And
that-
law,
for the city. Yeah.
it was never
I didn't say
decided.
anything like that. I don't know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. If that's for real, somebody
that-
at another meeting, let's have an education on what in the world that's all about, because I never heard anything.
I think
like
you
that.
guys are
No, we all
talking
had
about
to
the
sign them.
statement of compliance that was required, and that is being repealed.
When is that going to take effect?
I think it's going through city council standing committees. I think it was just at rules this week. So it has to get through the committees and then it would have to go up for vote. But the law office recommendation is that that statement of compliance be repealed.
Well, thank God.
Okay,
Please thank them for me. That was a sticking point, the way that the language was written.
So hopefully it'll go through, but the law office recommendation was to repeal it and the legislation is progressing, but it's still in standing committees.
Okay, thank you.
They certainly didn't use it. I don't know if Lynn saw it. I never saw anything like
Linda.
anything
You
signing.
needed a document, Trudy. Unfortunately, it took a lot of difficulty in order to get to the original documentation. That may be why you missed.
it wasn't referenced in what you signed. It was referenced in what we signed, but it wasn't explicit on the document we actually signed. I think it references like a code number or something. And if you dig up the original thing, I think it didn't say it on the,
Pretty
yeah.
much was.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was written by multiple entities over probably what could be decades, and things got lost in the interpretation. It's good to have this thing removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just was looking at your code section. You guys do have express powers to make recommendations related to acquisitions, maintenance, management. That's all in
Yeah.
there. So you're allowed to make recommendations to the city and various city departments.
Yeah.
Okay, does that cover pretty much anything, or is that limited to easements?
I mean, I think it would be anything within your purview, but hold
I know recreation is one of the things
Mhm.
listed. It's in our purview. So I think this would count
Yeah.
as recreation.
I do
But-
too.
This as well. So there's a lot of things where it could be, and there's unfortunately also a lot of things that it couldn't be. Might be another thing to get checked on eventually.
I think it's in there. You have a section in there about promoting recreation and a whole other list of things. So I think
Yeah.
you could I mean,
That's good.
because you're just making recommendations or opinions. I mean, it's no different like the Maritime Advisory Board does it, the Environmental Commission. There's lots of commissions that do like formal recommendations or opinions. And I think you guys are definitely broad enough powers to do that without
Okay,
incurring the wrath of the city. Well, and in any legal capacity at any rate.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, I would feel far more comfortable doing that after they got rid of that chapter and verse in the code, so that we could feel more free to do what we should be doing.
I know we live in a goofy city sometimes, but that would be the goofiest yet.
Yeah, I'd like to
Would
see
be
it.
upset with us with the
Pull that one on us.
conservation board because we expressed an opinion about something we know
Again?
about.
I also
Well,
don't
they-
see
they
how
did-
it's not
They did
against the
kinda
city.
threaten they
Yeah.
did kind of threaten the environmental commission. That's sort of where it came from.
Yeah, they did. They did. I guess my question, and maybe this is to Ashley, I guess, or Racine, is the city doesn't have a stance right now, Tom, I don't think, on what is or isn't allowed. They're asking for input. So I guess from my standpoint,
that's
it's not
fine.
it's not as if we're going against what the city is saying or suggesting they do something different. They are asking for our input. So I think in
we
that
are
case,
for this project specifically, if no
Yeah.
other project, we are openly saying, what do you want to see?
yeah.
there?
So I think
And that's a request that has gone out to all the boards and commissions?
It goes out citywide. There's a press release that's going to go out about this meeting. Anybody's welcome to make recommendations.
Is it going out to the boards and commissions as well? Or is
Is
it
it-
going out to the citizens? The citizens want to do it, we can all write. If they're going out for,
he wants to know
for
if you're specifically sending it to a board and asking a board to make a comment as a board.
Well, I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I mean, when I'm sending out invites, at least the environmental commission is involved, is part of the invite list.
We were on it.
You're on the invite
Probably
list.
different neighborhood associations, if they
Yeah.
want to weigh in. Yeah.
Yeah.
just
No.
guys, trying to cover everybody's six on this one. Like I said, until that language gets changed, that's currently going through to be repealed, we are still subject if we go against the city's wishes.
I don't think we're going against their wishes here. Again, they don't have a stance. There's no set. They're asking for feedback.
We
Let
beat
anybody
this
lead
to
with-
death. I don't know if anybody else has to go, but I think this discussion is really bizarre. And couldn't we just draft a letter, check again with the lawyers? And the idea that a city asking for opinions wouldn't receive one from our board is just beyond the pale to me. But we've all said the positions, can't we just drop it for tonight and the chair can get the letter and talk to the people and we can vote on it. We can vote whether we're too nervous to send it in when we have the letter if we need to. But couldn't we just call this enough for one evening?
Well, Racine, when would you need that letter? I think that's the difference, Trudy, is when they need the input.
I don't know. See, what's happening is we've got the Zoom meeting that's happening next week. Design is going to be based in part on some of the feedback that we get. But we have a grant and the grant expires, I believe, May of next year. So we need to get moving on the design piece as soon as possible. So I couldn't give you like a distinct date, but I would say as soon as possible.
So Karen knows this. You write a letter in the next few days. The chair consults again with Ashley as whether she thinks we have the authority as a commission, and you send it out for an email edit and vote, and we get it done. I mean, what's so hard about that?
Well, I guess so. Majority rules is how our bylaws are written, that it's majority rules, not consensus. So if the majority of us say, yes, it's going to be from the board, then it would go from the board. But if there is someone who is wholly opposed to it, I guess, Tom, we could say Tom and whatever the term is, extension, I'm trying to say, I can't think of the damn term. But yeah, that, Tom was absent or whatever the daggone phrase is. We could figure that out if you feel really strongly you'd be included.
Well, our
I
lawyer has
would've-
advised us it's appropriate and and our bylaws. I mean, you want a motion that says we get a letter. We do want to see the letter. But that we agree, we have a letter that our goal is to send it as a commission. What can we do right now to make some action and move this? I mean, we can't just sit here. I don't know.
All right, so hang on. I think, so I get it. I know you want to get going. So I think the
Yeah.
main thing we need to know is, I think at this point, I just want to make that clear that if we do a vote over email, which we are allowed to do, it will be majority rules. Now,
Sure.
if someone does not agree with their name being part of a thing that says this is the board, I would maybe advise, Tom, if you feel that way, to reach out to Ashley individually or somebody and say, how do we put this in the letter? So I'm not, I'm whatever it is the concern is. So that's what I would say to everybody. So I'll check in. So Karen, if you can draft the letter, that's awesome. We'll send it around. We can all edit it. And then I'll check in Ashley with you separately and whatever, and get the best advice we can. I'll send it out to you guys with the letter and we'll vote on it. And if anyone has, a concern about it, if it goes forward, then I would say to that individual to reach out to myself and to Ashley and make that decision for yourself. If you feel like you really can't, have it say that with your name included.
Great. That's all I was asking for at 7:44. Let's just have a strategy for moving on and getting it resolved and decided. Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So is any questions left? Everybody good?
Good.
Good.
Okay. All right. I think that is it.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right.
Sorry to
thank
cut you
guys.
off, Joanna.
Oh, you're not cutting me off. No, you're fine. No. Thank you guys so much. Racine, thanks for all your help. Ashley and Linda, thanks for offering to draft the one piece and Karen the other. So thank you guys. And